About me and my struggle with Crohn's. So I'm Lindsay, I'm 27 years old. My journey with IBD officially began 3 years ago on August 19, 2012 at the age of 24. Needless to say, I was in total shock. When I say there are 5 stages of grief, it's true, I experienced all of them. First of all, was denial, the doctor must be mistaken, I thought I just had the flu. Then there's anger. Why me? Like, what did I do to deserve this? You know, like, I'm a pretty nice person, I like to think anyways, and it was a big shock. So all my friends are out enjoying life, and I was stuck in a hospital bed for quite a while. And there's the bargaining, it's like, take this away, please, God, and I will, clean my room, eat my liver, eat more balanced diet, whatever it takes. I'll do anything. Then the depression sets in. Still something I struggle with on a daily basis. It's quite isolating disease, like most of you guys know. Then there's acceptance, realizing I have an incurable disease, even though some days that's a pretty hard pill to swallow. I know for some of you this might seem silly, grief, no one died, but I was grieving the girl I used to be. She was now gone. In the initial 6 months, I spent about 50 days in the hospital, lost about 40 pounds. I started out with IV antibiotics and steroid around the clock. Then they weaned me down to the pill form so that I could go home for a little while. That was pretty short-lived. A month later, they decided that treatment wasn't going to work, and they found a perforation, which, if you don't know what that is, it's my disease had eaten through the bowel walls, and I was needing to have surgery. Not long after my operation, I developed an abscess or an infection, which caused me to be hospitalized again. A radiologist inserted a needle into my pelvis with a CT scanner so they could drain the abscess. This time I was roomed with a guy the same age as me, so I got to actually learn a lot about Crohn's. When I was initially diagnosed, I had absolutely no idea what this disease was or really what it meant. It was a lot all at once. The morning after the drain was placed, I was not feeling good. My nurse did a set of vitals and found out that my heart was racing at about 190 beats, which is, I guess, pretty close to a heart attack. So all of a sudden, I remember there's all these doctors and nurses, and they had ECGs and X-rays, and it's being poked and prodded, and they moved me into observation. And I remember being really, really scared. At that point, my body was under a lot of stress. So I remember looking back, and I think at that point, being in observation, I think that was pretty close to when I almost lost my life. So that kind of shows you how real it is. Standing up here today, I'm doing quite a bit better, I guess. So finally, they got everything kind of sorted out, and I was able to go home for Christmas, and I finally was able to adjust to having my ostomy. I was able to stay hydrated enough, and about 6 months later, it was in February, they decided that I was finally ready to have my ileostomy reversed. 4 days later, that was a really short hospital stay, but 4 days later, I was finally able to go home. I got released on my 25th birthday. I thought this was pretty cool. Thought this was a new beginning, I guess. In March 2013, I was finally able to return to work. It was challenging physically, but for my emotional well-being, it was really awesome. By July, I could feel many of my old symptoms returning, as well as I started to experience joint pain. At first, the pain was very manageable, but as months went on, the pain increased. There were days when I was hobbling around with ice packs on my knees or carting around my best friend heating pad, which many of you probably know. In October, my doctor decided it'd be best interest to start Crohn's medication. Until this point, other than the antibiotics or the prednisone, I hadn't been on any medication. So we started out just on a low dose of medication, and so then a couple weeks later, it wasn't enough, I guess. I ended up in the ER with my first ever flare, which I guess I know now what the symptoms of that are. My doctor increased my medication and put me back on steroids. These steroids aren't the Popeye kind. They make you like the pufferfish kind, which many of us probably know. These medications got me back on my feet, but I was no means well. In mid-January 2014, my doctor and I decided it'd be best for me to take another leave from work, take some time to figure out what was going on, and I finally got to see a rheumatologist. After months of testing, they finally diagnosed me with inflammatory arthritis. So at this point, I was 25 years old. They decided that it would be best to try Humira, which is a biological medication, to try to get some of the joint pain settled down, as well as would help with my intestines and what was going on with my guts. October 2014, it was year 2, the testing began again, starting with MRI, and they did a throat scope. They found a stricture, which is a narrowing of bowel, which meant another operation. So this is 2 years after my initial diagnosis. This would be my 3rd operation. So I was going to be scheduled to have another operation. It was about 3 months later, probably by the time I was able to get in. 2 weeks later, I ended up with a bowel obstruction, and they decided they'd just keep me and I would have the operation right away. So we did another 2 inches took another 2 inches. This time I wasn't going to need a ileostomy. So total I had 12 inches removed. This time I also was put on TPN, which is liquid nutrition, so I was able to give my bowels a rest, and I was able to finally not eat until I guess I was ready, which was really cool. This time I got to meet an older gentleman in the hospital, which I got to be his kind of mentor, which was really cool. Teaching someone new about what you've experienced and what you've learned was a really neat experience. So 6 weeks out of the hospital, I started back on my Humira, and my body decided that this was no longer going to be working for me. I developed an allergy. So in March, I was hospitalized again, put back on steroids, and I became Remicade. So the jury's still out on Remicade, not totally sure if it's the one for me yet, but it is helping a bit. This is supposed to be like the best medication so far for Crohn's. I think that's my opinion anyways. So hopefully it will, I guess, help. And I'd like to also get weaned off steroids eventually. I was also treated to a case of shingles in July, weeks before I was maid of honor at a best friend's wedding. And that was quite special. I guess your immune system is quite, Remicade really, I guess, got my immune system pretty low, so that was, it was very special, I guess is probably the best way to put it. So many of the drugs and treatments that work for others don't seem to work for me. I try to remember that each of us is different, and I remain hopeful that eventually we'll figure it out and we'll feel well again. I've shared my medical history, but didn't mention that I now suffer from medically induced anxiety and depression. I'm unable to work and struggle to have a social life, which can be quite isolating at times. Many relationships I had prior to falling ill didn't make it through my initial diagnosis in the hospital stays. I became unreliable and my priorities changed drastically. My relationships that had made it through, I'm forever grateful for. These people have taught me what unconditional love is and how to be a better person. I'm grateful to my family for being by my side all the way. If it wasn't for them letting me beat them in games of cards in the hospital, I don't really know how I would have smiled. At least I think now. I thought at the time I was winning, but I don't know. Now I'm thinking maybe they're just being nice. I love when they bring out my nephew to visit with me. He was showing me his Halloween costume. Last year I was in the hospital for Halloween, or just things like that, being able to color with my little nephew. And my dad would he'd sneak in raspberry lemonades, and I didn't know at the time, but apparently when you have an NG tube in your nose, you're not supposed to have raspberry lemonade. And I got told that pretty quickly, but I don't know. These are things that I guess you gotta kind of do. Sometimes you need to smile, even if you get yelled at. And to my mom for being my rock. She's always sticking by my side for helping me bath or shower when I was just too weak. And again, that was something that I never ever thought would happen to me in my life. Obviously until you're old, but. Or she'd cook a special diet for me, or bring my puppy up to the hospital, visit me, or into the parking lot, because it was just so long in there. I just missed her so much. I know also when we're out and about, and I always apologize when I have to use the bathroom, and she constantly says to me, "You do not need to apologize. I know you cannot help it." And that's just something that I don't know, it just goes with habit, but it's kind of nice to know that, you're not inconveniencing her in any way, or spent hours and hours in the hospital on multiple occasions. I remember saying to her, I bet you regret having me, and she said never ever once. So that's always really special. She's never ever made me feel like a burden or an inconvenience, and I'm so lucky to have support like this in my life. Just in closing, I would like to say I'm not sharing my story for sympathy, but to educate people on the reality of this horrible disease. I feel like I look like a pretty healthy person most of the time, but this is stuff that I've experienced in the last 3 years, and it's, I guess, very eye-opening for a lot of people. I pray that one day there will be a cure, even if it's not in my lifetime, but for the sake of my family and anyone who ends up with this disease, so they won't have to struggle for years like I have. Thank you.